Hey guys, Exile here bringing you a Detonate Dead Ignite Elementalist guide and why I think it is one of the best league starters for the 3.21 league, and I'm heavily considering playing it myself for HC Trade. Yeah, it's been nerfed, they've bug fixed the corpse walkers, this and that, but it's still a solid build and can do all the content. Even Ubers, even Simulacrum. I will say Ubers are pretty challenging. You're not going to walk in there and just one-shot them. Like, it does about 7 mil dot, and that's when you hit your corpse. And the Ubers are definitely going to still be challenging. You're going to have to know the fights, but I was able to do them on about 3 days of GSF gear, so just to keep that in mind. And with that being said, let's get into a map here so I can show you guys how Detonate Dead Ignite actually works. So the way Ignite works is when you put an Ignite on a monster, and if I continue spamming Detonate Deads, it's going to put the biggest Ignite on the monster that I'm hitting, right? So what we want to do is we want to have a Spectre that's 360% life, because that's all we can get now, unless there's some new bugged corpse we don't know about. There's always a chance that can happen. With new league mechanics and new monsters in the game, there could be a new bugged corpse, but for now, it doesn't really matter what corpse you use as long as it's higher than 360% life, like a Katava Herald, so you should just use a Katava Herald. I was using a Stone Skin Flayer in this character for corpse walkers, but it doesn't matter anymore, obviously, so don't worry about that too much. I'm just using it as an example. So, how the build works is you cast Desecrate, it's a 2-button build, and then you Detonate Dead. However, when you are doing this Desecrate cast, you are hoping to spawn your Spectre Corpse in here. There's a 15% chance, I believe, unless they've changed it, per Desecrate to get your corpse. So here I cast a Desecrate, I got a Stone Skin Flare. Here I cast it again, there's another Stone Skin Flare up there. And the goal is to hit this corpse, pretty much. But don't worry, you don't actually have to hit this corpse while mapping. Like, you can just kill monsters while mapping while hitting random garbage corpses. They will still die. You use Vol Detonate Dead on tanky rares and essences, and they will die. The main thing with bossing on this build, and why this mechanic of RNG getting your corpse is way less irritating, is because we use Defiled Forces, which makes it so that when we curse an enemy, it will refresh our Ignite. So that makes it so that we can use things like Replica Emberwake, and the downside is obviously 90% reduced Ignite duration on enemies, and it doesn't actually matter because we're just going to refresh our big Ignite from our Spectre Corpse over and over. So what we do is we get to a boss, and we will use our Focus Shock from our ring, and we will like Vol Detonate Dead and try to hit our Spectre Corpse, and then just curse. And then, you know, the boss will die, and you don't have to refresh your Ignite over and over again. I will say, though, one thing you need to keep in mind when playing this is that the Ignite range is about like 1.5 screens. So keep that in mind when you're playing this, that you don't want to get too far away. Now, where do we get a Spectre for the build? Well, if we're just going to use Katava Heralds, you can just go to Act 10. You can honestly just kill one in the zone, but you can just come in here in the canals and just cast Desecrate until you get one. Look, I just got one right there. Katava Herald? Yeah, right there. Katava Herald, and then you can just take it as a Spectre. And then it's in your pool forever. You don't actually have to have a Spectre with you at all. And then you're good to go. With that being said, let me hop into PoB here so I can show you how I have set this up. So I have several different trees from normal lab until endgame for you to follow, as well as I have day 1 to day 2 gear, as well as late game gear to go for, and same thing with gems, so that you can follow that. If you have any questions, though, you can always just come to my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Imexile, and ask me about it. But to go over the tree, the main things you're going for is, you know, aura clusters, dual curse, fire dot multi, life suppression. You know, it's not super complex. Pretty much every build nowadays probably goes for similar things. The one main thing I will say, though, as far as items you want to pick up early, is you want to get a careful planning likely as soon as possible so you can solve your dex issues very quickly. So you can run that Grace at a high level, and also while leveling, probably expect to click some of these nodes, click Practical Applications, some Physique Alacrity, because you might have to deal with solving those attributes early before you have the Careful Planning and attributes on gear kind of stuff. So yeah, like I said, got your early normal lab tree, and you just follow this up until endgame, and this is the most important tree, the one you're going to get early on, where you actually path over to Magebane and Reflexes in order to get cap suppression. So you really want to get cap suppression as soon as possible so you don't die. And then late game, after you have really good gear, you can switch to the Marauder tree, which is what I got from Ben. This is more hardcore oriented, obviously. 177% life. If you're playing softcore and you want to go for more damage, feel free to drop this, get a cluster, and make the suppression work, and you'll probably do more damage. But yeah, that's how my POB is set up. I wanted to quickly go over the day 1 to 2 gear so that you have a very smooth progression and you know exactly what affixes to look for on your gear. First and foremost, I'll start off with the most important thing. Get fire exposure implicit with an Ichor on your gloves as fast as possible. It is very nice because it takes away the need to use Wave of Conviction on bosses in order for you to actually make use of your Ascendancy. And it also allows you to just have exposure while mapping generally. So you want to get that very early so that you don't need to use, a 6-socket 5-link with Wave in it, or potentially drop Flave Surge just so you can fit Wave in your gear. It's very annoying to make work. So definitely try to get that mod as fast as possible. Other than that, rest of your items are just going to be suppressed with like 1 res and then crafted life. It's pretty much what I've got in here. Boots you don't even need suppress potentially, and that also opens up the anoint to be suppressed as well if you need that to get capped. But yeah, every item life res suppress pretty much. Rings, belt, chest. The chest, we do want to be using an evasion energy shield base. I would recommend just getting the first 5-link 6-socket and using like a Sadist Scarab or some other evasion energy shield base early on in order to solve your blessing mana cost problem. Because if you don't have enough energy shield to cast your blessing, you're just going to be missing out on a whole aura, and it's really not going to be good. So until you have Power of Purpose, which as you can see here, really changes the mana cost of your blessing from your Militant Faith, I would highly recommend running either a chest with energy shield hybrid, or running like a bunch of other energy shield hybrid items in order to actually be able to cast that. And as for your weapon, you're going to be looking for fire dot multi, generic dot multi, cast speed, fire damage, and gem levels are not as important for Detonate Dead. They don't really boost your damage much, so don't really worry too much about that. And other than that, it's pretty much it. Make sure you pick up a Heist Scepter base as soon as you can over just using a regular Scepter base to save you 3 points, which you can just put right into Filed Forces. And just make a very cheap 2 divine weapon like this. You'll be able to do like most of the game. My character in my GSF was basically this weapon with tier 1 fired out multi instead on a heist base. So yeah. So that's what you want to be looking for there. And as for uniques, I already mentioned the Militant Faith and Careful Planning. Very important. Get that as fast as you can to solve your dex problem. And that's it for day 1 to 2 gear pretty much. And then for the endgame gear, one thing I really want to highlight, I'm not going to go through every item here. It's just kind of an example for you guys to go through for what kind of gear you want to be looking for. But you really want to pick up Replica Emberwake, as it is a lot of damage with the Filed Forces. However, when you do that, keep in mind that you need to swap your pathing from this fire dot multi to Ignite Duration, and also you need to be running Unbound Ailments. Otherwise, your Ignite will be way too short, and it won't even get refreshed from your curses because they won't apply fast enough. And then you will be very sad. So make sure you keep that in mind, especially when you get a 6-link and start running Swift Affliction, right? So make sure you do that when you use Replica Emberwake. And another thing to mention is Fire and Ignite resistant rares. I would actually recommend not running Swift Affliction if you're using this ring while mapping. Otherwise, firing Ignite resistant rares, they will not, you just won't have an Ignite on them. It just reduces your Ignite duration to literally 0. So keep that in mind when you're doing that. You know, a cheap thing to do if you don't really feel like changing Swift Affliction for mapping is just to take the ring off for a second and kill the rare, and then it dies fast, and then you're good to go. But yeah, just keep that in mind when you're fighting those rares. That's like the only annoying thing with using all this reduced Ignite duration kind of setup. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the gear. If you have any questions, let me know. Now, I wanted to talk really quickly about the leveling because there's a lot of changes to leveling coming for next league, right? So I'm not 100% sure what the best way to level this build up until level 28 is actually going to end up being. I have tried using Stormblast Mine with Orb of Thorns up until 28 with no Onslaught, and it felt fine. That might not be the best way to do it, but that is the way I'm going to recommend. But keep in mind, we no longer have the Wand recipe, right? So what I would suggest for leveling now is you're going to want to grab the highest level wand base you can get around the time you get to Solaris level 2, which I think is Fawn's Horn. I could be wrong, but you grab that and then you come into Solaris 2 here, and there is actually a wand recipe up here in this room, which I've already grabbed, that costs 4 transmutes, which gives you flat fire to spells. So you want to use the new base plus that, and it'll be similar to the old wand crafts and should carry you all the way up until maps using Armageddon Brand and Cremation. Now, for the tree, for leveling, the goal is to rush EO pretty much. So you're going to come up here through Firewalker. I would recommend grabbing Lightning Walker and Frost Walker early on as well, just for the res. You can kill all bandits, and you come to EO, and then you go around and grab the Aura Wheels and Purity of Flesh so that you can get Determination equipped pretty early. If you're in Softcore, don't really worry about getting Determination equipped as early as others. And we are going to use a new mastery, the critical strikes do not inherently ignite, and then 100% increased damage with hits against ignited enemies. That's going to be a lot of damage for leveling that new mastery, so you want to take advantage of that. And for Cruel Lab, we come over to Templar and grab the damage and life here. And from there, we head down the right side of the tree towards the suppression, EB, so we don't have to deal with mana anymore, Whispers of Doom, so we have Dual Curse, and then that's the point where we swap the Detonate Dead, and when you swap the Detonate Dead, spell damage is no longer relevant for you, so we respec the starting nodes, we pick up Undertaker, and we also pick up Breath of Flames. Now, for lab order, I would recommend going for Mastermind of Discord. Your exposure is going to get applied by Wave Conviction, and after that, we go for Shaper of Flames, so you can skip all the Ignite Chance nodes and just get the multi-nodes, and it's also just more damage with your Ignites, and it also works well with this mastery. And then for Merc Lab, I'm going to be taking Heart of Destruction, and in Uber Lab, we are going to be taking Bastion of Elements. Now, this did get nerfed, but I still think it's better than taking Shaper of Winter, even though I'm going to experiment with both for sure, but I think I would rather have this for just more defense and being able to run more maps with Reflect on them than Shaper of Winter. Might use Shaper of Winter on bossing, we'll have to see about that. But yeah, that's the build. All right, and I figured I would show you guys a quick normal Maven just to show you the build in action and how I play with the Defiled Forces Infinite Ignite Refreshing so that we can boss. So this is just going to be a normal Maven. Yes, I have the item equipped, Eternal Damnation. I just didn't want to brick my standard character, but I took an aura out to compensate for it. And yeah, so basically we're just going to curse and detonate dead, or desecrate detonate dead until we hit our corpse, and then kind of dance around. I'm probably just going to keep spamming it just to be sure we hit our corpse, but yeah, it's not much more to it. Now, this character isn't fully set up optimal. I'm missing quite a few things like Scorch, because I used to be using Corpse Walkers on this character, but as you can see with the Ignite range there, we ran out of range, so it fell off, and yeah, we're just going to keep doing this until the boss dies. And there we go. That's one phase. I'm probably not gonna go through the whole fight. Just want to give you guys an idea of what the play style is like. It's actually particularly good on Uber Maven because you can use the boss corpses in order to detonate them onto Maven and then like kill her pretty much instantly. It does require some planning though, but it exists. So we have Vol Detonate Dead up here, so the rotation with Vol Detonate Dead is Desecrate, Vol Detonate Dead, Desecrate, so that you don't instantly deplete the corpses. I'm probably going to spam a bit more Desecrates because I have a Diadem on, because it eats corpses, but I'll just do that, and then we'll move on. So Desecrate, Vol DD, Desecrate, and now we run around pretty much. And she'll slowly die. I'm not even going to have to cast anything unless she teleports out of range, which that might have been. And yeah, she'll just slowly die. And yeah, that's pretty much how the playstyle is. Pretty straightforward. And yeah, I'll just get out of this. If you want to see the progression of this build going up until maps into endgame, I'm probably going to do one leveling run up until level 70 or 80 at some point this week. So I'll probably link that in the description below along with the POB so you can check it out if you're interested in playing the build. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Have a good league start.